All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into stress.
Okay.
And I'm sure everyone listening,
Mm.
has experienced stress in some way.
Mhm.
So many times, like we've used stress as this like negative thing, this
Uh-huh.
bad thing. But I've been doing some reading and it seems like it's not quite so simple.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like this superpower that kind of lives inside all of us.
Okay.
And, just like an oyster takes a grain of sand, something irritating,
Mm-hmm.
and turns it into this beautiful pearl,
Yeah.
we can actually use that stress
Yeah.
and turn it into something that's beneficial for us.
That's a really cool analogy. So how do we actually do that? How do we take this like stress superpower
Right.
and use it and not let it use us?
Yeah. I think it starts with really recognizing that there's 3 different time scales of stress.
Okay.
And when we start to understand the difference between the different types of stress,
Mm-hmm.
we can really start to harness that power.
Okay, so break it down for me. What are the different types?
Yeah. So you have short-term stress, that's, seconds, minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You have medium-term stress, that's weeks, even months.
Okay.
And then long-term stress.
Gotcha.
That's years.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's where I think like a lot of the confusion lies
Yeah.
is like what's considered short term, what's long term.
Totally. And even like when people talk about good stress and bad stress,
Right.
it can get really murky
Yeah.
and confusing.
So like short term stress, I mean, how is that beneficial?
So short-term stress, while it can be challenging,
Mm-hmm.
it's often extremely beneficial for us. Think about that deadline.
Okay.
You're really trying to push to get something done,
Yeah.
or you almost get in like a car accident.
Right.
That surge of energy that you feel.
Mhm.
That is the power of short-term stress.
Okay.
And there's actually this breathing technique called the Wim Hof method.
Okay, I heard of that.
You familiar?
Yeah, vaguely. I haven't actually done it.
Okay, so it's this like crazy breathing technique where you do all these deep inhalations and
Mhm.
exhalations, and it actually spikes your heart rate.
Okay.
It activates that sympathetic nervous system.
Wow.
And studies have shown that if you do this breathing,
Mm-hmm.
they injected people with E. coli bacteria.
What?
Yeah.
Who volunteers for that?
I know, right?
Oh, okay.
But the people that were doing this Wim Hof breathing
Mm-hmm.
had significantly reduced symptoms.
So they were able to like fight off
They were able to control
the
the
infection.
inflammatory response
Wow.
through this breathing.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, so it's like we can actually harness that stress response to boost our immune system.
Totally.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So that's short term.
Okay, so what about when that stress lingers a little bit longer? Like when you have that feeling of just being overwhelmed for like weeks, months?
Yeah, that's medium term stress.
Okay.
And that's where things can get a little bit tricky, because that can lead to burnout and exhaustion
Right.
if we're not taking care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that we can do is actually intentionally raise our stress threshold.
Okay.
So one of the ways that I do this is I'll do like a really intense workout, like
Mhm.
sprinting or high-intensity interval training,
Okay.
get my heart rate up,
Yeah.
and then I'll practice calming my mind
Okay.
while my body is still activated.
Interesting.
So it's like almost like a dissociation, not in a clinical sense,
Right.
but it's like I'm separating my mind from my body.
Right.
And I can teach myself to be comfortable at higher levels of activation.
That makes sense.
So what used to feel overwhelming
Yeah.
now feels more manageable.
Okay, so we've talked about like short bursts of stress. We talked about this like week, months long. Feeling overwhelmed. Now what about long-term stress? Like what about this chronic stress
Yeah.
that we hear so much about?
That's the one we want to avoid
Okay.
at all costs.
Okay.
Long-term stress is detrimental to our health in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that classic visual of the shrunken, stressed brain?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really powerful.
Yeah, like scary powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems like, short-term stress can kind of be our ally.
Totally.
Long-term stress is definitely the villain.
Definitely.
But what about the emotional roller coaster? Like, how does that play into all this?
Yeah.
Because it seems like our emotions are so tied to
Mm-hmm.
how stressed we are.
Absolutely.
But emotions feel like so much more complex than just like, oh, my heart rate's going up.
Yeah, emotions are complex,
Yeah.
but they are very intertwined with our stress response.
Okay, so how can we make sense of all this? Like, how do stress and emotions actually relate to each other?
Well, I think about it like this.
Okay.
Emotions arise from the interplay between our internal state
Okay.
and the demands of our environment.
Okay, so like if I'm calm and relaxed
Yeah.
internally and I'm in a peaceful environment,
Yeah.
then, I'm going to experience probably more positive emotions.
Exactly.
Okay. And then on the flip side,
Yeah.
if I'm feeling really anxious and stressed
Yeah.
and I'm in a really chaotic environment,
Totally.
then negative emotions are going to be more likely to surface.
Right, because there's a mismatch
Okay.
between your internal state and your environment.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So like if I'm tired
Yeah.
and I'm ready for bed,
Mhm.
then I might feel content. But if I'm tired and I have this huge to-do list
Yeah.
that I haven't gotten through,
Totally.
then I'm going to feel anxious.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like our emotions aren't just dictated by what's happening around us,
Mhm.
but also like what's going on inside of us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is where that idea of being able to shape our internal landscape
Totally.
becomes so important.
It's everything.
Yeah, like if we can learn to manage our stress response,
Mhm.
then we're better equipped to handle all the ups and downs of life.
For sure.
And we're not going to get as triggered by external events.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about empowering ourselves
Yeah.
to navigate those tricky moments.
So are there tools and techniques
Oh, yeah.
that we can use to do that?
Tons.
Really? Okay, like what? Tell me more.
One of my favorites
Okay.
is this breathing technique called the physiological sigh.
The physiological sigh, okay.
Yeah, and it's so simple.
Okay.
It's a double inhale through the nose
Mm-hmm.
and a long exhale out through the mouth.
That sounds pretty easy.
It is.
So how does that work to actually reduce stress?
So what happens is when you take that double inhale,
Mm-hmm.
it helps reinflate these little tiny air sacs in your lungs.
Oh, wow.
And that actually leads to a more efficient release of CO2.
Okay.
And that promotes relaxation.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like a direct line to your nervous system,
Wow.
calming down those feelings of stress and anxiety.
Ugh. That's so cool. Okay. I'm going to try that one.
Try it out.
So what about in the moment? Like say you're in like a high pressure situation, like you're in a meeting or you're in some kind of like stressful social interaction.
Yeah, one of the things that I love to do
Mhm.
is something called gaze dilation.
Gaze dilation.
Yeah, and essentially when you're feeling that anxiety, that stress starting to rise,
Yeah.
you shift your focus
Mhm.
from tunnel vision to more of a panoramic view.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So it's like taking a step back
totally.
and broadening your perspective.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's really powerful.
Interesting. Okay.
And then for long-term stress,
Yeah.
nothing beats genuine social connection.
Okay, so you're not talking about like scrolling through Instagram.
No,
Or-
right.
okay.
Talk about face-to-face. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Interactions.
And like calling a friend.
Yeah.
Grabbing coffee, having dinner.
Totally. Yeah. Those real-world connections
Okay.
trigger the release of serotonin, which is our feel-good neurochemical.
Right.
And they actually reduce the production of a molecule called tachycanurine.
Tachycanurine.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Yeah, what is that?
So tachycanurine is a molecule that's been linked to fear, paranoia,
Oh, wow.
impaired immune function.
Oh, okay.
So it's not doing us any favors.
So it's like social connection is not only good for our mood, but it's actually protecting us from these
Totally.
harmful molecules.
Yeah, it's like a built-in defense system.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so find your people
Find your people.
and spend time with them.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is all making so much sense. So if like emotions are influenced by both our internal state
Mm-hmm.
and like the demands of our environment,
Yeah,
can we intentionally shape our internal landscape
that's a great question.
to experience more positive emotions?
And it's one that we'll delve into in part 2.
All right, I can't wait.
Yeah, so I think it all comes back to the tools that we were talking about in the last part. Okay, so like the physiological side
Exactly, yeah.
and the gaze dilation,
yeah,
like
we're actually...
like those are things we can actually do
Yeah.
to change how we feel.
Exactly. And when you practice these things regularly,
Mm-hmm.
you actually start to develop a sense of agency
Okay.
over your stress response.
So instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm totally overwhelmed,
Right.
there's nothing I can do.
Totally helpless.
It's more like, okay, I have some tools. I can,
I've got this.
yeah, I've got this.
Totally. And that can actually start to impact your emotions.
Uh-huh.
So when you feel more in control of your stress response,
Mm-hmm.
you're less likely to get swept away by those negative emotions.
Like the anxiety, the fear.
Exactly. Like
okay.
you're building up this reservoir of resilience.
Okay, I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can weather those storms a little bit better.
Without getting totally knocked down.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like you're working out at the gym, but for your emotional well-being.
So it's not just about like managing stress in the moment. It's about like building long-term strength.
Long-term emotional strength.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, it's about cultivating this kind of state of mind
Mm-hmm.
where you feel more equipped to handle whatever life throws at you.
So you're not just reacting.
Exactly.
Stray.
It's like you're taking back control from the stress monster.
Yeah.
They're like, not today.
I'm in charge.
I'm running the show.
Oh, okay. I like that attitude.
Yeah, but it's important to remember this is a journey.
Okay.
It's not like you arrive.
There's no destination.
There's no destination. Exactly.
Okay.
There are going to be times when the stress monster pops up,
Yeah.
and those old patterns, they come back.
It's like, it's okay to have setbacks.
Totally. It's part of the process.
Yeah.
It's about having this kind of compassionate awareness of your experience.
Yeah, okay.
Recognizing that, you know what, you're a work in progress.
We're all works in progress.
We're all works in progress, exactly.
Okay, that's comforting.
Yeah, and as we continue to kind of explore this world of emotions, we're gonna discover even more tools and strategies.
Okay, so speaking of exploring emotions,
Yeah,
I'm curious, how do our thoughts play into this?
that's a great question.
It seems like our thoughts can either add to our stress
Absolutely.
or they can help us calm down.
Yeah, and that's the power of cognitive reframing.
Okay.
You can really impact your emotional experience.
So it's not just like what's happening to us.
Right.
It's how we're thinking about it.
It's how you're interpreting it.
Okay.
Exactly.
So our thoughts are almost like this, like extra layer.
Yeah, they can either fuel the fire
Okay.
or help you put it out.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Sure, yeah. Imagine you're stuck in traffic.
Okay.
You're late for a meeting.
Ugh, hate it when that happens.
It's the worst.
Okay.
And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be so late.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a bad impression. This is a disaster. Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of thinking is just going to make the situation worse.
Right, right. It's like
You're adding fuel to the fire.
adding fuel to the fire. Yeah.
But what if you could reframe that?
Okay, well.
What if you could say to yourself, you know what, this is inconvenient, but I'm not in control of the traffic.
Yeah.
I can use this time to listen to some music,
Okay.
catch up on some emails.
So you're shifting your focus from the things you can't control
Exactly.
to the things you can control.
Totally.
Okay.
And that can have a huge impact on how you feel.
Instead of feeling like a victim of circumstance,
Right.
you're like, okay, I'm going to make the best of this. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're seeing that silver lining.
I like that. Yeah.
And the more you practice this, the more it becomes a habit.
Okay, so you're actually training your brain to look for the good,
Totally.
even when things are tough.
It's about cultivating a more optimistic outlook,
Okay.
which has ripple effects on your stress levels, your relationships,
Oh.
your well-being.
Okay, so this is all making a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But there are times when I feel like I'm not even aware of the negative thoughts
Right.
that I'm having.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like they're on autopilot.
It's totally common.
Okay.
We operate from these unconscious beliefs and patterns that we've developed over years.
Yeah.
But the good news is
Okay.
you can become aware of them
Okay.
and you can start to challenge them.
So how do we do that?
So mindfulness practices like meditation and journaling can be really helpful.
Okay, so it's about creating space
Yeah,
to observe our thoughts without judging ourselves.
totally.
Okay.
It's recognizing that your thoughts are not facts.
Okay.
They're just mental events.
So just because I have the thought I'm not good enough,
Right.
it doesn't mean it's true.
Exactly.
It's just a thought that's passing through.
Exactly. You can choose to believe it or not.
Okay.
And the more you practice this kind of mindful awareness,
Yeah.
the more you can start to disentangle yourself
From those negative patterns.
from those negative patterns.
Exactly. So it's like you're reclaiming your power
Totally.
from those thought loops.
Exactly. And as we continue to explore this connection between stress and emotions, we're going to dive even deeper
Ooh, I like
into
that.
the power of your thoughts
Okay.
and how you can use them
Yeah.
to create a more fulfilling and joyful life.
This is so fascinating. It's interesting. We started talking about stress as if it were this like big monster. But the more we talk about it,
Yeah.
the more I'm realizing it's not that simple.
Yeah, it's a lot more nuanced
Yeah.
than I think people give it credit for.
Yeah. And what's really cool is this idea that maybe we can like use it
Oh,
to our
yeah.
advantage.
Like, I think about those times when I've been under pressure to get something done, maybe a deadline's coming up or I give a presentation.
Yeah.
That little bit of stress, it actually helps me focus. It boosts my energy levels, helps me perform better.
So it's like you're saying there's like this optimal level.
Yeah, there's a sweet spot
Yeah.
where stress can actually be helpful.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, I can use a little bit of stress, but like, how much is too much?
Right, and that's where it's really crucial to know yourself,
Yeah.
to be aware of your own individual stress threshold,
Okay.
and to have those tools in place to regulate your response.
Right. So if you start feeling overwhelmed,
Exactly. You can
well,
pull out those tools like that physiological sigh,
yeah, the gaze dilation.
gaze dilation,
Yeah.
nurturing those social connections.
Yeah, all those things.
Yeah, they can really make a difference.
It's like we're becoming our own stress management scientists.
I love that.
Figuring out what works best for us.
It's a process of experimentation for sure.
Yeah, and learning from our experiences.
Absolutely. The more you learn about yourself,
Yeah.
the more skillful you'll become at harnessing the power of stress.
Okay, so it's not about like getting rid of stress completely. It's
Yeah.
about
It's about befriending it,
okay,
learning to work with it.
working with it.
Yeah. It's a natural part of life.
It is.
We're not meant to avoid it at all costs.
I love that. Okay, so big takeaway.
Yeah,
We have way more control over our stress response
totally.
than we realize.
Yeah,
And we can actually use it to our advantage.
for sure.
Okay, that's a really empowering thought.
That's the goal.
This has been such an amazing deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, I'm really starting to see stress in a whole new light.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to keep exploring this whole world of emotions.
Yes, there's so much more to discover.
So to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
We hope you learned a lot, and until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep striving for a life that's both meaningful and joyful.
Couldn't have said it better myself.